Welcome to the F Sharp Podcast, presented by Harmoney Wealth, a podcast geared to educate you on all things financial. Co-hosts Tanner Bortnem and Adam Henning discuss various financial topics presented in a consumable and entertaining manner. Tanner is a certified financial planner, JD, and financial expert, while Adam is a marketing professional and small business owner. It's time to harmonize. Sit back and enjoy the episode. Your future self will thank you.
Welcome to episode 38 of the Financially Sharp podcast presented by Harmoney Wealth, a podcast geared to educate you on all things financial. I'm your co-host, Adam Henning, marketing professional and small business owner. I'm joined with co-host Tanner Bortnem, certified financial planner, JD, and financial expert. There's Tanner. How are we doing, Tanner? Welcome.
Hey, Adam. Doing just fine. How are you?
Lovely. I'm excited to talk about today's topic. It's a heavy-hitting topic. It's something that we could probably trace back every episode of the F Sharp podcast to, and that's generational wealth. We queued that up in episode 37. So this episode, we're going to talk about generational wealth, explain what it is, why it's important, and then give you some steps and strategies to accomplish generational wealth. So what say you?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this one as well. I know we've been teasing it for a while. Really, I feel like this is a culmination of a lot of, our previous episodes, and you can find little pieces of everything from earlier episodes that are all going to be, building on this happy accident there, no pun intended, to help build generational wealth. But it's something that's near and dear to my heart. It's what I try to help all clients do. Of course, if it's their goal, for most people, I'd say they'd love to accomplish this. But a lot of people just don't know where to start.
2 minutes in, we have a Bob Ross reference. Happy accident. Like that.
Yep, that's right.
All right, so let's just start off. I think it's pretty self-explanatory of what generational wealth is, but for those that maybe not aware or want to learn more about it, what are we talking about when we say generational wealth?
Yeah. So without being redundant and using the term to explain itself, I'll try to kind of come up with something a little bit different. And really, generational wealth is creating enough assets and enough wealth. Unfortunately, I have to use that, but creating enough stuff that you own that not only are you going to be fine for your lifetime, but you're setting up the next generation and hopefully even 2 or 3 generations down the road, so that they get a leg up as well. They're not starting over from scratch, and they're getting to start on first base, so to speak. If we're going to use a baseball analogy, they're already on the bases and have an advantage, really. I mean, that's what you're doing. You're trying to help out your kids and the next generation, set them up for success.
Makes sense. I like the baseball analogy.
I know. I thought you would.
Again, another that leads into why. Why is it important? Again, I think pretty self-explanatory. I think most people that are either watching or listening to this probably understand what generational wealth is and why it's important, but let's just cross that checkbox and just talk about why it's important.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think really the first question is that you have to ask yourself is this important to you? I do have some clients, they don't have kids. So
Sure.
This isn't really important to them because there is no next generation for them. So, you have to ask yourself that, is it important to you? But if you do have kids and there, are going to be next generations coming down the road, it likely is something that, most people are going to say, yeah, I'd love to do this. I just don't know how. And, we touched on it with a little bit kind of with what it is. Why it's important is we all love our kids. I mean, I don't have any kids. I'll speak for you, Adam. I know you love Miles, and I would assume most parents would say, yeah, if I can do anything to give them a head start, I want to do that. And so really it's just trying to help set them up for as much success as they can have throughout their lifetimes.
Yeah, he's the reason I think I've been curious, and obviously you being a substantial friend and friendship in our relationship, that causes me to be curious about that. But I think that is one of the main reasons of why I've been curious to explore and educate myself with financial literacy, but also knowing that, and I'm not to be super a Debbie Downer, but I would consider myself, I didn't or don't think I will receive that first base head start. So I wanted to give my family or my kids more of a head start than I received. So I think that's kind of the genesis of my financial literacy education. So yeah, I think that's a core foundational piece to why I'm doing a terrible job of explaining this, but
no, keep going.
And you're like, there's always just this other things that I'm looking at, and you're freezing, so I'm like trying to make sure that we're still live and all that kind of fun stuff. So clear as mud. We're just going to move on to steps and strategies to accomplish this. And there's a lot of things that we're going to talk about, but me reading and outside of the podcast, I know some of my first steps that I think is important to build generational wealth. And I just want to kind of bounce those off you. But what are some of the first steps or strategies that we can go ahead and accomplish this? And I think we've talked about just a little bit about it already.
Yeah. So, we're going to have a bunch here that we have listed out we're going to go over. So I just kind of want to lay out the groundwork. None of these, I would say, are more important than any of the others. They just happen to, this makes the most sense to me in trying to explain it for kind of from start to finish, like assuming that you're at the beginning of your journey and you just decided this is important to me and I want to figure out how to do this generational wealth thing. That's where we're going to kind of start. Now, everybody's somewhere along that path. And so you may pick up at, the third thing we're talking about or whatnot, but we'll kind of just work through them here. And I think the first one is really, we touched on it. You got to have the right mindset. Like, is this actually a goal of yours? As I alluded to earlier, I have some clients where they don't have kids, so this isn't a goal of theirs. But if it is a goal of yours, it can't, the key to it is for this to work without a lot of luck, without kind of lucking into it, winning the lottery type of a situation, you have to prioritize it. It has to be one of your top goals so that you're willing to put this above most everything else. I'm not saying put it above your family. I'm not saying put it above your health, but it needs to be one of your top goals because there are things that you may have to sacrifice or, things that are going to come up where you're going to have to make decisions on it. And if it's not a high enough priority, those other things throughout life are going to continue to take, priority over this goal. And you're not likely going to get there because you're going to be prioritizing other things first. So if you truly want to get there, this needs to be one of your top goals. Couple of we'll be given some statistics as we go through this. Again, having that right mindset is we all can do this. I know there's been a lot of news out there, and a lot saying that the American dream is dead. I think it is still alive, but I think it is not as easy as it was in previous generations. But that's not to say that it's not there anymore. 68% of people with a net worth over 30 million. Now, again, that's tons. You don't necessarily have to get to that to be deemed generational wealth. This is just what one statistic I found. But 68% of people with a net worth over 30 million are self-made. So, having that mindset of, oh, I can't get there. No, you can get there. 68% of people have gotten there. who are over the 30 million have done it themselves. You can do it too. It takes a lot of work. It takes some, effort, some good decision making, some discipline, all the things we're going to go through, but you can get there as well. You just have to prioritize it. And then again, kind of sticking with this mindset, the other one that I see a lot of that people really just need to get over is you don't be afraid to fail. We really, I don't know, as a society, I don't want to say I feel like we're more accepting for failure to a certain extent because like everybody gets participation ribbons for everything these days. But at the same time, I don't know if people are like learning from their failure. I think it's just becoming like acceptable to fail. I hate saying like acceptable to fail or acceptable to be worse. Just, I think it's like, hey, it's okay. You tried good enough. Like, no, like you failed and that part is okay as long as you're learning from the failure, right? Like, I think that there's lessons to be learned from a failure. Don't let a failure go by and just be a failure. Use it for good, and so don't be afraid to fail, but don't waste that experience either and just be like, oh yeah, I failed, whatever, and not think about it, not, improve upon whatever it is you failed at.
Sure. I understand that this question is probably going to be based on situation and you tack it on a case by case basis, but do you set when you're approaching generational wealth? I think from my standpoint, we can use my situation. Given the stat that you just stated, I think what do you determine as success for passing generational wealth? I'm sure that you don't put a monetary value on it. I think just giving Miles and future kids educational costs and giving them that head start would be a success in my eyes for generational wealth and passing that on. I think that would be a success in my eyes. And I think that's important to define. Everybody has their own situation. So throwing out a $30 million figure, like you just stated, I don't think is what we're getting at.
Right. So two things with that. First, let's do the 30 million. You're exactly right. And that's why I tried to allude to that and say that you don't have to get to 30 million to have been deemed successful at generational wealth. That is just a statistic that I found, and I'm using that to show 68% of people with a net worth more than that did it themselves.
Sure.
So we can do it too. You have the ability to do this. If you're listening to us, you have the ability to do this. You just have to make the choice to do it.
And is that self-made from scratch? I mean, that's probably a loose definition of self-made. I'm sure they're not inheriting a whole.
Correct. Yes. It's not someone who inherited 30 million. It's not the Rockefellers or, the Kennedys or, the people who have been in generational wealth for many generations so far. These are people who built it themselves. Now, I don't know. It didn't state whether they inherited $10,000, $100,000, $500,000, but still, let's say you inherited $1 million. You still have to do pretty well to turn $1 million into 30 plus million. You still are working hard to do that. So, but anyways, the point is we all can do this, and that's getting to 30 million. And as we're alluding to, you don't have to get to that point. So then to your other point, you're exactly right. It's a case by case basis of what you deem as generational wealth. Not everybody's going to be able to get to that $30 million mark just based on a lot of different things in their lifetime. But setting the next generation up to be better and to be able to start on first base, like, there's second base and there's third base. Some kids get to start on third, right? Some get to start on second. Some are basically touching home when
they're in the
start.
dugout. They've already scored.
Right. So it's just you're at home plate. You're just trying to get your kid out of the batter's box. The further you get them along the field or along the bases, the better they have of a chance. And so getting college paid for, that's a good step. But it really is. It's up to each individual of what their goal is and what that looks like for them. So unfortunately, I can't, put a monetary value on it like you mentioned.
Right. Well, I found a
But
statistic that according to Investopedia, 1995 to 2016, 55% of inheritance were under $50,000 and 2% exceeded 1 million. So everybody's going to feel differently about that type of amount. I think most folks would enjoy $50,000 in inheritance. So everybody has a different viewpoint on how much that average inheritance would be. So we've kind of discussed making sure that this generational wealth is a correct mindset and is a core value. Once we've
real quick, I want to jump in there too on this. So when we're talking about inheritance, because I don't want to muddy the water on that, creating generational wealth, if you get a substantial inheritance, that's your parents or a previous generation who have created this generational wealth for you or your kids. And when you inherit things, again, for most people, again, not everybody, unfortunately, sometimes parents pass away at too young of an age, but for most people, you're not inheriting that money until you're well along your career and almost maybe in retirement anyways. So if that is how you are self-made, you waited a really, really long time. So I wouldn't really classify that. Well, obviously, it wouldn't be classified as self-made. But what I'm trying to say here is like, you never know what type of inheritance you're going to get. And you have to wait for that for so long that I don't think, a lot of what we're going to be talking about is this is how you do it from the start. If you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, like, this is what you need to be doing so that you're that starting point of the generational wealth. Now, if you get an inheritance on top of that, fantastic. That adds to your pot, but you're the starting point, making sure the next generations are going to be taken care of.
That makes sense. So once we've kind of established that we understand that this is something that we want to do or build, what's our first steps?
Yeah. So once we've gotten past that,
because I think that's step one. And a lot of the things I read, we talked before this, how I get irritated of, just make more money or start a side hustle. I think those types of articles or social media posts gloss over the most important part, which is what we just talked about, education and understanding that this is something that you value. So once we establish that, then we can start with the strategy and how you go about that.
Yep, exactly. And we'll get to the social media. I'm glad you teased that one. So the next step I would say is again, it depends on your age. If you're already in your career, I don't want to say you're set in stone, but you're further along your path. But if you're a young person, figure out what you're good at. I would say a lot of society is always telling, and I got this same information when I was a kid, find your passion, find what you truly love and you'll never work a day in your life. Well, you know what? I love golfing and I am just not good enough to make the PGA and to make that a career. Like, I had to be real with myself. I'm never making the PGA Tour because I'm not willing to work as hard as them. I don't have the talent that they have, all of those things. But I love golf. So if I followed that logic, I would be wasting my life away, who knows, trying to make the PGA Tour type of a thing. So instead, I found something else that was interesting to me and that I have a passion for. Not as much as golf. I really love golf. I'll be honest with that. But I found something else that I'm just really, really good at. And that's how you're going to make money. Now, if you are a lucky person and both of those things are combined, if you're LeBron James and you are amazing at basketball and you also love basketball, good for you. You're in the 1%. But for most people, find something that you're good at. You can turn that into a passion because we can all be passionate about different things and your passions change throughout life. So find what you're good at and go be excellent. Go be excellent at that. That is one of the biggest things, is be an expert in your whatever you do. One of the analogies I heard is you could be a plumber, right? And people are like, oh, you can't make money being a plumber. Well, guess what? There's a company here in Phoenix. I bet they make millions,
Oh yeah.
millions per year because they're the people everybody calls. They're the biggest plumbing company in the valley. They're who everybody calls pretty much. So, yes, you can make lots of money doing whatever. You just have to go be the best. So, focus on that. So figure out what you're good at and go try to be the best at it. Um, with that, if you're a young person, now again, I went to a ton of schooling. I very much believe in education, but there is stupid education costs. Very stupid education costs. In my opinion, you should not spend $200,000 student loans to guarantee that you have a job that pays you $40,000 a year. That is not a good trade-off. Not a good trade-off at all. So just make sure what you're going to do is going to pay off whatever those educational costs are, and try to limit that because, again, a weird statistic, but everyone assumes that millionaires are the smartest people. They actually, I'm not going to say they're dumb, but from a grade standpoint in school, they actually typically aren't the people who get the best grades. They're the people who are kind of that middle third, type of a thing. They're not the top third, but they're not the bottom third. They're in that middle third. And so, maybe not getting scholarships, maybe not getting those types of things. So limit your expenses because can be a huge hole to try to climb out of, especially starting early in your career. And while you're in school or doing whatever you're doing, I think the most important part and the most important thing to learn is actually how to learn and to think objectively. Like just going in, and I'll use me as an example. This is a spitting image of me. It is more important to learn how to learn and how to be a self-starter and how to think critically than it is to be able to memorize a bunch of stuff. I was that kid. In high school was easy. I didn't take a single note. I don't say that to be arrogant. It was easy for me. I could sit in a class, listen to the lecture, and go take the test and get an A. It was not difficult. Undergrad came along. I had to take a little bit more notes and I had to read some things, but for the most part, it was very similar. Law school came. Here's dumb Tanner trying to do the same thing. I'm just going to sit here, take some notes. No, it kicked my butt. Finally, in law school, I had to learn how to learn, but that is when the switch flipped in my brain of like, this is how life is. This is the important part. Being able to critically think and figure things out, learning how to learn, knowing how to be able to take something and I can self-teach myself now, whatever topic it is. That is so, so important for every person. And especially if you want to build this generational wealth, because you have to have that desire to continue to want to learn, to be able to figure stuff out on your own, and really work at it. It's not something that's just going to be handed to you unless you are that person that's already in the dugout. And for most of us, that's not the case. So we have to go create this. We have to go figure out how to create this generational wealth. And you have to be able to learn how to do that and learn, I don't want to say learn on the fly, but you have to be able to keep progressing throughout life because things are going to change. What we're doing right now in 2023 is going to be different than what is going to be required for generational wealth in 2033. The laws are going to change. Different things are going to happen. So you have to constantly be improving.
Makes sense. A lot of that was focused on career-focused advice. I think I know enough to know that I'm not going to approach our finances with a DIY mindset. That's why I've got you, luckily.
Right.
So I hope folks that are listening either want to learn more or know that having a financial advisor is going to be an important part to in their journey.
And quick caveat with that, I'm glad you pointed it out. That is something we have coming up, is working with an expert is important part of this. But I still think even if you're like any of my clients, I always say, please ask me questions. I want you to understand. Like,
Yeah.
I want everyone to still understand. You can work with an expert, but you still want to understand, because that's how you can take some ownership in what's going on. Plus, you make sure you're not getting screwed over. We've talked about that in a
True.
bunch of previous episodes too. Like, unfortunately, there's a bunch of salespeople out there in my industry. So you have to know enough to make sure you're not getting screwed over too. So don't just blindly put your faith in, someone because they claim they're an expert. Keep learning along with them so that make sure that you're both on the same page.
Sure. Starting early.
Yep. That one's pretty self-explanatory. The earlier you start, the better odds you have.
Common theme. We've said that many times.
Yep.
Next one we would talk about is control your spending. I think that's something that, in life advice, you always hear control what you can control. A lot of the things that I've read was get another income stream, make more money. I think those are easy things to say, hard things to do. I think more importantly, and the thing that you should do first is take a look at your current situation, look at your spending and control that spending and reduce it. That's going to create more flexibility, and with discretionary income, give you more room to invest or start. That makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. It's absolutely perfect what you're saying. I 100% agree. All these things on social media talk about, get a side hustle, do this, do that. That's how you have, it's like, or not that that's bad,
Right.
Not that that's bad, but is it easier to get a side hustle and have to figure out some new industry and some new whatever and start a business and blah, 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 blah to make an extra $1,000 a month? Or is it easier to go to your expenses and be like, wow, I spend a lot of money on X, Y, and Z and cut out $1,000 a month? Well, that's easier. Now, are you going to be able to find $1,000 a month to cut out? Again, depends upon your situation, but it is easier and quicker to go to your expenses and control those than it is to go try to make more money. Now, combination of both is best, but I think starting with your expenses, everyone can do that. Not everyone has the capacity from even a time standpoint to maybe go get that side hustle. So everyone has the ability to look at their expenses objectively and maybe I need to cut back a little bit on X, Y, or Z and really just try to keep those under control.
Make reducing your spending your side hustle.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Your first side hustle, then your second side hustle can actually be a side hustle.
Sure. Financial plan. Where does this all fit into the grand scheme of everything?
Yeah. We hit on this again. I want to, what's the saying? Kick a dead horse or whatever. Yeah. We talk about this in tons of our previous episodes, how important it is to have a good financial plan at any age, just knowing where you are currently with everything that you have. What's the goal? Work with someone that creates an actual financial plan. I think we did, if I'm remembering the statistic correctly, we did it on 1 or 2 episodes ago. It's something like only 14% of people actually get comprehensive financial planning. And the reason behind that is again, in my industry, financial planning has become a buzzword that people are looking for. And so a lot of places, obviously, what's the math on that? 86% of places are saying we do financial planning, but it's not comprehensive. It's just like, it's basically an investment proposal, or it's here's what you're estimated, like going on everyone who has a 401k. I'm sure in your 401k, you can put in, here's my income, here's what I'm saving, here's how much I can get. That's not a financial plan. That's not a financial plan at all. But that's what people are, pawning off as financial plans. So make sure you're getting a comprehensive financial plan and then stick to it. That's the biggest key. It can be modified. Life changes, and so the financial plan needs to change with you, but sticking to your goals of the financial plan and doing what's required under the financial plan to achieve those goals is the part that you need to stick with.
Oop. Can get rid of that. There we go.
That's all right. Still learning.
Yeah, I thought it would go away with that transition, but no. We talked a little bit about social media, and it's not very sexy to save. Trying to avoid get-rich schemes, day trading, speculative investments, all that type of stuff. Touch on that for us.
Yeah. So
we're ready to invest. We know we should invest. What should we and what should we not? I think is what I was.
Yeah. Yep. No, I got you. And these next couple are going to, what things should we invest in? And then the next kind of topic we talk about are going to go hand in hand. So there'll be a little bit of overlap. But we want to invest in good assets. So the first thing is we want to invest in assets over liabilities, right? I see a lot of times where people will start having a good income and all of a sudden they go buy $100,000 car. Not a good investment. Am I saying don't buy $100,000 car? I don't know. That's up to you and your financial plan. But cars are liabilities. Cars depreciate in value. That $100,000 car will never, ever, ever be worth $100,000 again, unless somehow it's number one of one, and that's the only one they ever make, and somehow it goes up in value 50 years from now. Excuse me. But what we should instead be focusing on is buying assets. Rich people buy assets, not liabilities. So buy assets. And when buying assets, buy good assets. And this is where the social media comes in. I've mentioned this before, I get hit up all the time with the ads and this and that. And, the algorithms saying, oh, you're in the financial world, so here's some financial crap, basically, that we're going to put in front of you of these people who are trying to become influencers and claiming to be experts. Bitcoin. Yeah, there's people that made millions of dollars off of it, but I would say there's more people who lost money from it. That's speculative. Can you make money off it? Sure. If you want to dabble in it, fine. Not something you want to try to build generational wealth off of. What else are we at? The day trading. We did that with, GameStop and all that. Were there people that made boatloads of money? Yes, but more people who lost. So again, anything that is brought up or said, oh, this is a slam dunk. This is a, you can triple your money in a year. You can 10x your money in a year. Like all of those things, that's a sales pitch. We got to that needs to start registering in our brain. Those are sales pitches to activate the fear of you missing out. So you take a step and do something and buy something, because they don't care if it actually goes up or doesn't. They've made their commission off of it. Another one that's on there all the time, life insurance retirement plans. Be very, very wary of those. Again, we've gone over it in a previous episode, but if they were so great, why is the commission so big for the insurance agent selling it? If they were the greatest thing ever, they'd be like a stock and you wouldn't make any money for selling it because everyone would want it and the transaction cost would be very low and it would sell itself. So just be careful about those things. Do what Warren Buffett does. Buy good companies. If you want to model your life after anyone for generational wealth, I don't know a better person than him. I mean, he's literally done everything correctly of this list that you could. And has he gotten lucky along the way? Of course, there is always an aspect of luck in any of this. But I would say if you follow all these steps for generational wealth, you will create it. It's a matter of how much do you create is where that luck can come in. Do you get to 1 million or 5 million or 5 million or 10 million or, whatever it ends up being that your goal is? The luck is kind of dictates how high you can go, but you can get there just off of following these, being disciplined and putting in the work. But, just buy good assets, not liabilities. And then of the assets, buy quality assets rather than speculative, get rich quick things. Investing should be boring. And I know that is not, as you mentioned, it's not sexy. It's not exciting. It's not Robin Hood and gamifying, all of that. Yeah. It's not what it's supposed to be. There's a reason that people don't make a bunch of money on those other ones over time. And that's because that's not how it works. It should be boring. You should just buy good companies and let them do their thing. Be an owner. Go buy whatever company, because I don't make recommendations on the podcast. Pick company ABC that makes whatever it does and is a good company, is going to be around for a long time, and let that company grow. And you're an owner of it because you own some of it, and you own some of the shares, and you get to grow with them. And you don't have to do anything about it. They do all the work.
Yeah, I mean, all these concepts, and it's real easy to just gloss over them. So, yep, got it, until the rubber meets the road. And I caught myself very recently, breaking news, but so I'm stepping into a new position. So I got a nice raise.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yay. So I found myself right away going, all right, I should get a new car. We look at trucks. We looked at a house. And then I was just like, what am I doing? Like, nope. Discipline was that word you talked about. Model yourself. Discipline. It took a lot of discipline to just say, yes, I would like a new vehicle. Right now, I currently drive a car and I live in Minnesota. So that would be a want, is to upgrade. But I just took a step back with Greta. I was like, nope, we need to pay ourselves first, be disciplined. We can have the luxury of doing other things first. Now we can go see Tanner more.
Yay, also fun.
Do vacations or save more. We have more opportunities, but I found myself one of the first things to do, pull up and start looking at trucks. I was like, nope, don't want to do that.
Yeah, and just to play off that real quick, because I want to keep moving through this so that this doesn't become an hour and a half long episode. But that goes back to having a financial plan, because you mentioned it. Pay yourself first. That's an amazing key that we haven't talked about yet. Pay yourself first, and then if you have the financial plan built out, you know what your expenses are because you did that in one of our previous steps, and you pay yourself first to make sure you are on track for whatever your goals are. Well, now you know what the extra money is to do whatever you want with. Like, the goal of this is not to, I mean, for some people it is, I know some people that they're very, very, very frugal and saving is everything. But for most people, it's walking that tightrope of, I want to make sure that I could do X. And so pay yourself first, make that like an expense, and make sure that you're going to achieve that goal. And then any extra money, do whatever you want with it. That's to live life. That's to enjoy life right now. That's all of those extra things, but make sure you're paying yourself first. So we'll walk through that in your financial plan sometime, but maybe you can get that truck. You just got to, make sure that you can do all those other things first, and then you can go to your wants, right? Needs first, then wants.
We've kind of talked about how, understanding the mindset, accumulating what you should do. Anything you want to add on kind of what you should do to accumulate before we get into kind of the vehicle of passing the accumulations? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, one of the biggest things, and I alluded to it a little bit, was Warren Buffett. Is, I think everybody that has this as a goal for generational wealth needs to research rich people. Don't envy them. Well, actually, envy them.
How do you research rich people?
Oh, there's books written on Warren Buffett. There's Warren Buffett. I mean, that's a very easy one. With Berkshire Hathaway, you can read the quarterly reports. He puts out tons of great information at every year.
But is he the exception to the rule? Because I mean, the dude is pretty humble, and still lives in his childhood home.
Yeah, but that's my point. If you're gonna model yourself after anyone, that's the perfect person to do it. But even if you,
a lot of
absolutely
rich people. So
absolutely, there absolutely are. But it's not like, that's my point. Is it shouldn't be about that. Like, don't hate rich people because you envy them. Figure out how to join them. Figure out what are they doing that I'm not doing, and go do that. Or if you can't do the same thing, like I can't do what Warren Buffett did, to be very honest, none of us are going to be able to do that, because one, he's the greatest investor ever. And two, they're just, how the markets are now is different than when he started, right? So it's a different time. But you can still, I mean, I think people would be okay saying, oh, I was only 1/100th as good as Buffett and he's worth however many billion, like that'd be hundreds of millions of dollars you'd still have. You only need to be 1% as good as him. So just follow the things that he does, or any other rich person. If you want to, okay, I gotta take that. I gotta reel that one back in a little bit. Maybe not every other rich person, but
that's what I was trying to get at.
Well, right, but pick a self-made person. Let's take Elon Musk for example. He's a very polarizing person, or Jeff Bezos, very polarizing person. A lot of people hate them. Again, for whatever reason. I think it's envy for the most part. They shouldn't have as much money as they do. Well, that's not my problem. They have it. But what did they do? They went out, found a need, and created the thing to solve that need. I mean, look, Amazon, right? We did not have an Amazon. We had a Walmart, but you had to go do it. We didn't really have online shopping. He was the first and the best. He's figured out how to do 2-day shipping when our own government can't figure out how to do its mail anywhere near as efficiently as what he does. And it's free shipping if you have Prime. All these things, they figured it out. There was a need in society, and he figured out how to fill that need. And when you do that, you are rewarded very, very well. So find that. Go, model yourself after current millionaires. It's not a secret recipe of how to become a millionaire. There's just different ways to get there. There's different paths, but they all have similar commonalities amongst them, which are, as much as it seems like rich people live these extravagant lifestyles, and yes, we do have some of that, and we, of course, see it on social media again, which is the crook or the root of most evils. But most of your millionaire next door type people, they're actually pretty frugal. They are the Warren Buffett. They bought a house and it was just fine for them. They made it their home. They lived in it. As they continued to make more money, they didn't continue buying bigger homes that they didn't need. They didn't keep buying more fancy cars and more expensive cars that they don't need. They just kept living their life and making more money. And so be somewhat frugal. Now, I'm not saying don't enjoy your life, but live within your means, right? How do you view money? This is another huge one that's a difference between people with wealth and people who don't. Do you view money in abundance, or do you view it with a scarce mentality? And they've done tons of research on this. Overwhelmingly, millionaires view money in abundance. They're willing to take risks. They're willing to fail because they know there's plenty of money out there. And if this doesn't work, I will make something work. I will work hard enough. I will continue working, and something is eventually going to work, and there's plenty of money, and I will be rewarded. Whereas people who don't overwhelmingly have the idea of there is only so much money. I can't take this risk because what if I fail? What if, and you're always in competition with everyone because there's not enough money. Have the other mindset. There's plenty of money. There's so much money in the world. I mean, go back and listen to one of our previous episodes on the amount of debt the United States has, right? That amount of money is out there in the economy, plus even more of it. There's plenty of money for all of us. Have that mindset. Go get it. Go get your money. And then kind of a couple other things with that rich people tend to do is they don't have what's called kind of this victim mentality. If something bad happens to them, it's not because the world is out to get them. It's not because something is unfair. It's just, hey, it's a lesson. I failed. Like I alluded to with my golf, right? I am not good enough. I'm objective with that. I'm not good enough to make the PGA. Let's take basketball because I brought up LeBron James. I am not good enough to be in the NBA. I'm 5'8" and I cannot jump. I am not going to be able to dunk a basketball. So I'm not going to sit here and cry and moan and try to get the NBA to lower the hoops to 7 feet so that I now can dunk and change the rules for everyone. I'm just going to go find something else that I'm good at. Maybe I start shooting 3-pointers because, and be like a Steph Curry, or again, I'm not going to be Steph Curry, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, you can find your role. Not everyone is good at everything, and that's okay. Find what you're good at and go be great at it. Don't fall victim to that victim mentality of like the world's against you. Like, no, the world is out there for you to take advantage. I don't want to say take advantage of. That sounds terrible. The world is out there and has plenty of opportunity for you. You need to take advantage of that. Go keep finding, go keep trying. And that's what millionaires do. They keep trying. If they hit that first roadblock, they don't just stop. They keep going. They keep going. And then another one, overwhelmingly, it's 88% of millionaires are entrepreneurs. They start a business. Again, I alluded to that with Jeff Bezos. Now, granted, he's extremely wealthy, but he found a need and he built a business to do that. So again, it's 88%. Statistics show it. 88% of millionaires are entrepreneurs. So whether that's a side hustle, whether that's just, you start your own business, take that risk if it's something that interests you. It's not for everyone. Again, it isn't. There's risks associated with it, but when you go out and work your butt off and are successful at it, you're rewarded very well for taking that risk that a lot of other people are not willing to take. So that's one of the fastest ways to get there, is go start your own company and work your butt off to be successful at it.
Every time you say Bezos, I got that stupid Bo Burnham song in my head. I wish I could play it, but you've never seen it?
I don't know, probably.
Jeffrey Bezos. But so another learning portion of what this episode is, taxes. What type of taxes are we to be aware of when we're harboring this wealth and passing it along?
All of them.
Taxes are the bane of my existence. So
everyone's.
You telling me to learn the tax code, I'm just gonna go, help.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. And this works again. This works in tandem with a lot of them. So, all taxes. The more you understand the tax code, the more you can legally. That's the other part. Nothing that we talk about here am I ever insinuating that anyone should evade taxes or do anything that is illegal. But for whatever reason, Congress has this narrative that these tax loopholes are terrible things. Maybe because it's an embarrassment to them because they're the ones that drafted this stuff and created the tax loophole. So maybe they're trying to make it sound like it's bad and you shouldn't use it. Nope. It is a legal tax loophole. It is nothing illegal about it. It is not your problem or my problem that members of Congress create rules to play the game and that people figure out how to play the game better than what they did. It happens in everything, like take the NFL a few years ago with Bill Belichick sending out a running back and making the running back ineligible and confusing the defense because there's not enough linemen, but it was perfectly within the rules. They're talking about it this year, the Philadelphia Eagles with their quarterback and 2 people coming behind to help push. They might take that out, but it was legal. It's part of the game right now. So if you're able to figure out how to legally take advantage of the tax code, do it. It's there for you. It's actually financially dumb not to if you have the ability to do so, which again goes back to the previous example of what do millionaires do? What do rich people do? Model yourself after that. Do you think Warren Buffett sits there and is just like, well, there's this tax loophole that's established that I can use that betters Berkshire Hathaway, myself, and all of the investors of Berkshire Hathaway, but I don't think that Congress meant it to be this way, so we're not going to take it. No, you take it. You drive right through that loophole. You drive right through it. And that's
Back
what we
the
all
Brinks
should be
truck
doing.
up.
Exactly. Exactly. It's not a bad thing. Like, they have a bad connotation, but we just need to get over that. It is legal. So if you yourself don't want to learn all of this, and I don't recommend you trying to, you need a very good, well, yeah, I mean, I would start with, you need a very good CPA. Now, I wouldn't stop there, because as I love CPAs, have great relationships with a lot of them, but they tend to look at things in a silo, year to year. How many deductions can we have this year, and not always what is down the road. So that's where the merger of a CPA and then a really good financial advisor, probably one that has a CFP so that they actually understand taxes, would be a recommendation I would make. Working together so that you're getting both the benefit of now plus down the road tax planning for your whole life. But put those things together and let the taxes work for you. Find as many loopholes as you can that work for you and use them. Be smarter about it. There's no requirement that you have to pay more in taxes than you are legally required to do. So stop doing it if you are. Just pay what you're required to pay and not a penny more. None of us should have to do that. The rules are what they are. Play by them.
I feel like this is a lot easier when you have an LLC or a business.
It is. Well, it's not necessarily easier, but that's another reason of go be an entrepreneur if it's
right. And that goes
desire
back to the 88%.
Yeah, because owning a business opens up a lot more deductions for things that you otherwise would be paying for. For example, if you, Adam, I'll just take you. You mentioned you have a car. Well, if you had your own LLC and you drove that car for business purposes, that trip gets to be deducted, and you still need the car for your personal, right? So there are things that you would own anyways that you now get to take deductions for a business that you don't get to when you're a W-2 employee. You don't get to take a deduction to drive to work because that's just a requirement as a W-2 employee. You don't get to deduct that from your personal expense. So you open yourself up to more deductions, which help save. But again, importance of having a good advisory team around you.
Makes sense. Once we've kind of put all this stuff in motion and process, how do we go about teaching the next generation? How do I teach Miles with real life examples? How do I, here you go, buddy. I'm putting this ball on a tee for you. You got to keep that and keep passing it on.
Yes.
Just don't let it stop with you.
This is, in my opinion, the single greatest or single most important point of this list. There is no point in trying to create generational wealth if it does not benefit future generations, right? That's the whole point of doing it. Otherwise, you might as well just make enough money for yourself, and then that's it. They can figure it out. And I'm going to do some statistics here.
Do that.
Oh, go ahead. Well, right. And that's fine, but that's their goal. But I'm going to give some statistics here that shows the importance of this and the lack of how we currently are doing as a society with it. So 70%, I'm pausing for dramatic effect. 70% of wealthy families lose their wealth by the next generation, by the kids' generation. And by the third generation, 90% of them have lost it. Now that signifies to me, but when this happens, you're not instilling good enough values. Now you can't control another human being. So if they're going to blow the money, they're going to blow the money, but you can do the best you can to instill future values for future generations, and the value of continuing this. Now, there's a couple of things with this. One of the sayings I've heard before, which is spot on, is unearned money comes with little respect. So you're already facing an uphill battle for the next generation because they're going to be handed this, right? And I don't think there's a parent out there that if you ask them, do you want to raise an entitled kid? They're going to say no, right? No one's going to be like, yeah, I want to raise an entitled kid. So they're already going to have this and not have worked to get whatever they're getting from this generational side. So it's even more imperative to teach them the value of how hard that was to work. And it reminds me of, Yellowstone, if you've watched a TV show. And for those who haven't, I'm not going to ruin anything or spoiler alert, but it's a huge ranch in Montana, and when it starts, it's on its, I believe, third generation. Is Kevin Costner is the dad, and then he has kids. So you're watching the show with the third and the fourth generation of this ranch, and you see the burden that he carries of making sure he doesn't mess it up. Now, you don't want to create that, because that's not in the show. It's not good. And I don't think that's good in life, to create a burden for your kids and next generations. But you do want to walk that fine line of making sure that they don't waste it all as well, and that they are continuing to value what you built. And if you can, get them to want to build on top of it, add to the legacy. Like that's my future kids, that's what I'm going to try to instill in them is, look, this is my legacy and I'm giving this to you. Now build upon this and make this your legacy. Take what I have and make it better. Continue building that, and so that they can take some ownership in it. And if that gets passed on every generation, now you are looking at a Rockefeller situation again. That, not saying I'm going to get to that level of assets, but just a 4 or 5 generation thing where no one has messed it up. The Kennedys, whatever. Pick your people who are like numerous. The Bushes, President Bush and both Bushes, like you're numerous generations where they haven't messed it up. And it's because whatever they're doing it right. They're instilling that generation where the next generation continues to build on it. I think that's the biggest thing, is giving that next generation responsibility, but also the ability to take some of it and make it theirs, rather than, well, here's just a bunch of money, or here's just a bunch of assets, or here's whatever that they get, and they just get it. They didn't have to work for it, because then that's a harder hill to climb, hoping that they don't squander that. And again, statistics are very, very much not in the next generation's favor of making sure that continues.
I wonder why that is. Is it just lack of interest in that specific conglomerate or business venture, I wonder, or they're just uneducated? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be family specific, but I think it's a combination of what I said. Unearned money comes with little respect. They didn't have to work super hard to get it. If grandparents worked super hard and were really frugal and built it, they know what the struggles were to get there. Next generation may not.
Sure.
So you have some of that, poor decisions, lack of parents passing down the knowledge to the next generation, lack of schools teaching financial literacy in general. Just there's a lot that obviously goes into it. So, be an advocate for your family and don't let that happen to your family. Pass that info on. You figured it out, pass that down and make sure that they keep it going.
Where does the estate plan fall into all this?
Yeah, it's very, very important. If you're building generational wealth, you're going to want to have a very well drafted estate plan. Again, not to get into this, we did a previous episode. You can go back and find it on estate planning, but you're going to want a really good estate plan that's geared around your family, however you built this generational wealth, however you want it to be passed on, likely in a trust of some sort, not necessarily, but likely. When do you want kids or the next generation to get funds? Do you want them to even get funds? All those things. Go talk to an attorney, get a good estate plan set up, and make sure that that isn't the unraveling of all that you worked hard to do as well, because you don't want to go through probate. You don't want to have, depending upon how much money you have, if you're in the estate tax, inheritance tax realm, you don't want to pay that if you can avoid it. So go make sure you have a really good estate plan.
Last thing you want to talk about? Oops, wrong one. There we go.
No, you're all right. I just had to move over a little bit.
Living a healthy life once you've done all this hard work.
Yeah. So with this, a lot of these I'm sure are going to come off as rules and sound really burdensome. And just being honest, they are. But you need to walk that tightrope. And I alluded to it a few times with, I'm not trying to make this so burdensome on everyone that you don't enjoy life. That's not the goal here either. The goal is, to achieve this or achieve whatever your version of this is, but also enjoy life along the way and walk that fine line of doing both. None of this matters if you hate your life or if you don't have your health or you have terrible relationships with your family because you're working all the time, you're so stressed out. Those things are more important. So make sure that you prioritize your health, your family, relationships with friends, all of those, your mental health. Those things are all more important than your generational wealth. And the reason that is because if all those things are going really well, it's so much easier to reach your goals of generational wealth because you're not spending extra time dealing with problems that you don't have to have. If you're not taking care of yourself from a health standpoint and all of a sudden you start having a bunch of health issues because of it, well, now it's taking time away from building generational wealth because you're now dealing with the consequences of not taking care of yourself health-wise. Now, again, that's not for everyone. Things come up. People have unfortunate things happen. And I'm not trying to insinuate all of that, but relationship with friends, your mental health. If you're not taking care of your mental health, it's going to be a lot harder to build generational wealth because you're not going to be as motivated. You're not going to have as much energy. You're not going to be having as much fun. So focus, make sure you're taking care of yourself, family, all of those things. Those come first. And then as you kind of wrapping that up, as you do this, again, make sure you take time to, kind of smell the roses, those types of things, and enjoy the trip. You're working really hard to build all of this. Enjoy the ride as you go. Look back. One of the best pieces of advice I got was from my mentor. And he said, every 5 years or so, look back. And you can do it sooner than this if you want, but look back and ask yourself, would 5 years ago Tanner be proud of where I am today? And that, I think, for everyone would overwhelmingly be yes. But the problem is we have such a recency bias that we look back a month ago or 6 months ago and be like, oh, I wish I was here. Yeah, but look where you have come from 5 years ago. Look at that. Look at that growth. And that's only in 5 years. Think if you keep doing that every 5 years, where you're going to be. So, cut yourself, some slack. You're going to make mistakes. It's like a diet. You're going to have that cookie every once in a while. It's okay. What?
Cheat days.
Cheat days? Yeah. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Warren Buffett's made bad investments, right? No one is perfect. You're never going to hit everything perfectly along this. You're going to have stumbles along the way. The biggest thing is that you get up and you keep going and you try to limit the stumbles. Learn from that stumble. If you have that cookie, finish that box of Oreos and don't go buy more at the grocery store. Don't keep 10 boxes in the pantry. That just makes it harder. It's harder to not want to eat them when they're sitting there. If they're not in the house, they're not there. Kind of, hopefully that's a good analogy with this, is just, you will hit roadblocks. Just learn from them, keep getting up, keep working at it, and keep trying to get there. And you will. If you have that mentality, you'll achieve it.
Anything else you want to touch on before kind of recap?
Yeah, just really, really quick, because I know that I'll get this otherwise. Just talk with your financial professional, whoever you're working with, but just very, very quickly, high level, some investment strategies to help. Try to put as much money into a Roth as you can. If you can put money into a Roth IRA, it's tax-free growth. That's the best type of growth that there is. So money you can be putting into a Roth is great. If you have a 401k or some sort of retirement plan at work and they offer an employer match, make sure you're getting the match. It's free money from the company. Make sure you're getting that if you can.
And we hit on it last. 401k is what, 18-19%, or is that dependent on the?
No, it's not percent. It's $22,500 for last year. If you're over 50, it goes up. But yeah, if you can, try to max that out. But again, I don't want to get too much in the weeds on all of these. This is what your financial professional should be working with you on. And if they're not, find a different one. 529 plans, we literally did it in the last episode. That is now a gigantic potential tax loophole to help really boost your kids. Just going over some numbers very, very quickly. You have the ability to put up to $35,000 out of a 529 into a Roth IRA for your kids. You can do $6,500 per year, so it's going to take you 5 years. I know I'm speeding through this, but if you do that starting at age 20 and you take 5 years to move that money over, by age 25, you'd be done. The kid would have approximately 38,000 because you'd have a little bit of growth in there. I then did the math on that. $38,000, adding no more to that for the kid, growing at 8% per year. When they're 65, it's almost $930,000. Talk about a head start, right? And it's 35,000 that is earmarked for education that could go to education as well. Huge, huge planning opportunity for people with kids. Talk with your advisor about it. If they don't know what they're doing, find a better one. Start a business or a side business.
Those first three. Yep. Those first three, you can do it regardless of the business.
Correct. Yep. Absolutely.
Yep.
As we talked about, you can start a side hustle. You can start a business. Any of those, you get a bunch of tax deductions. We hit on it. Find a good CPA that can help you walk through those. Add additional funds to a regular investment account. It helps diversify your tax strategy. Tax-free. This is taxable, and a traditional IRA or a traditional 401k is going to be tax deferred. Having money in all buckets is preferred because it gives you the most flexibility depending upon what future taxes are going to be. And as always, work with a professional who is truly an expert, doesn't just claim to be an expert, and does not receive commissions. That's the biggest thing. Find someone who does not receive commissions. Make sure that they're aligned, their interests are aligned with yours, not with selling you something. How's that? Ran through that real quick at the end because I know we're running up to the end here.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, for me, living this podcast, I feel like it's pretty redundant a lot of times, but it's like you said earlier, it should be boring. Like we talk about the same stuff and it seems easy, but once we kind of walk that path and are on that path and rubber hits the road, you start to see that it sounds good on paper and sounds easy on paper, but putting the plan to execution, there are some temptations along the way. But so let's just recap this real quick. Everything that we talked about, this has been a lot of meat and potatoes in this episode. So start early, create the financial plan, invest, control spending, multiple income streams if that's something that you can do, side business, side hustle, start a business. I think education as a right. Education
yourself.
Education as a whole, I think, not to go on a sidebar, but I think we're trained young to be good employees instead of being employers.
Absolutely.
So to reframe that mindset and have that that mindset to kind of do it on your own, I guess. Educate yourself, educate your next generation, and then protect your assets.
Yeah, well, and model yourself after others who have successfully done it already. Sure. You know, learn from them.
Yeah, don't ask or don't be afraid to ask for help. Work with professionals. So that's what I got you for.
I'm here for you, buddy.
Anything else you want to say before we say goodbye?
That was plenty.
I think we hit a record here. We're 110 minutes, so
we'll try to keep them shorter.
1 hour,
an hour, 10 minutes. Yeah.
Minutes, yeah. So, all right. That's all she wrote.
That's right. Thanks, everybody.
in this episode. If you have any questions or suggestions for a future episode, shoot us an email at podcast@financiallysharp.com. That's podcast@financiallysharp.com. Hopefully this episode's been helpful. And if you've made it this far, kudos to you. We gave you some golf, baseball, football analogies, some Bob Ross analogies.
That's right. Just keep them coming.
No PGA Tour for Tanner, but maybe, Live Tour is still an option for you. So good luck with that.
I'll take that big signing bonus.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody. Leave us a review. We'll see you in the next episode.
This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. This podcast does not engage in rendering legal, tax, financial, or other professional services. Investment advisory services are offered through Harmoney Wealth, a registered investment advisor authorized to do business in states where registered or otherwise exempt from registration. If you have questions pertaining to your specific situation, please contact Harmoney Wealth at 602-935-5155 or at harmoneywealthaz.com.